Welcome, everybody. The 2022 NFL season is over, which means it's time to look forward to the NFL offseason, and that includes mock drafts. Today, we're going to be looking at a Green Bay Packers 2023 NFL mock draft. All right, as mentioned, we're going to be taking a look at the Green Bay Packers in a 2023 NFL mock draft via a mock draft simulator. We're going to be using the NFL mock draft database today. That one is really good because the players who are in the draft are actually in this mock draft simulator, but the ones who went back to college are not. There will be players who maybe fall that maybe aren't the most realistic, but now we're kind of getting to the teams that are in the middle of the first round. It'll at least be somewhat more realistic, at least in my opinion, but we'll see how it all plays out. That could all change right on a dime. Also, as a reminder, we will be declining all trades that come through. Just a lot of trade simulators, a lot of mock draft simulators. The trades aren't the most realistic, so we're going to just decline all of them. We'll see some good ones come in. There might be a sixth-round pick that we have that ends up getting traded for a first-round pick, but we're just going to decline all of them to keep it real. But let's get started. We have the Packers. Obviously, they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers' decision to come in and see what the future of the franchise is going to be like, but they've already restructured some of the contracts that they have on their roster already, which can go a long way. They got Aaron Jones on a restructured deal, so we'll have to see. All right, as mentioned, Bryce Young's still there. That's not going to happen. So there are some players who drop that aren't the most realistic. But I'm going to go with Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama with the first pick here. The Packers had bad safety play last year, and Branch is a very versatile player. He can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play outside corner. He's really, really smart. He's got good instincts. And I think he could start from day one and be a really, really good safety and help shore up the back end of that defense. All right, so that takes us to round 2 and pick number 45. Tight end is a need right now. Robert Tonyan, he is what he is. I don't know if he's going to be back next year. We'll see. A lot of cuts still to come and some cap space to be figured out. But there's a lot of good tight ends with value at the top end of the second round. There's projected maybe 3, maybe 4 go first round. 4 is probably too high for me. 3 is kind of too high for me. But there's going to be 1 or 2 of these guys who fall to the second round. Darnell Washington's a good candidate. Luke Musgrave's a good candidate there. Really waiting to see Luke Musgrave's 40 time at the NFL Combine, assuming he runs. You could also, if we hadn't already taken safety, Antonio Johnson would be a good pick. You can go edge rusher, defensive line for some depth there. But we're going to go Darnell Washington, a big tight end. Didn't get used as much as maybe other tight ends. Georgia has Brock Bowers, who's going to be the number 1 tight end selected next year on the roster, but a big tight end who can help block in the running game. We'll see. Aaron Rodgers needs more weapons. He doesn't typically throw to tight ends, but we'll see. Maybe he uses them. They're going to have a lot of free agent wide receivers this offseason, so you're really counting on Christian Watson being that guy. Alan Lazard said he's not coming back. Randall Cobb's a free agent. They might bring him back if Aaron Rodgers comes back. If he doesn't, then you really need to get some more depth at the wide receiver position. All right, next pick up. It looks like we got some edge rushers who I think are pretty good. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a very streaky pass rusher. It'll be interesting to see what he does at the NFL Combine. But Adetomiwa Adebawore out of Northwestern, he's a guy who's expected to test well at the Combine. We're going to see. We're actually recording the video right before they're going to do the Combine drills. A guy who a lot of people think he can rise up the ranks. You would like to maybe get one of those wide receivers here. Tank Dell, Nathaniel Dell out of Houston's really good route running, but he's kind of undersized. I think they'll probably go a little bit later. So let's go ahead and get Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He's a guy that might sneak into the first round, honestly. I think he's probably more of a second-round player. I still need to dig into his tape. But like I said, he had a lot of big games, games where he had 5-6 sacks at Kansas State. We'll see if he can hold up at the next level. Moving on to pick 116. I really do like Garrett Williams. I think he could be a candidate. Eric Stokes did not have the greatest season, but you have Rasul Douglas, you have Jair Alexander, and I think you need some more depth at wide receiver position. So let's go with Parker Washington, a guy who made a lot of highlight plays at Penn State. Didn't have the most consistent quarterback play for the Nittany Lions, but a guy who I think if you're getting in the middle rounds, I think you could be happy getting him and slotting him in with some of these other guys like Watson and Romeo Doubs and see how they can do. All right, on to round 5 and for the Packers here. Still a lot of things that can be addressed. Looks like on this mock draft simulator, a lot of the needs are already fixed or at least filled. We'll see if they can actually kind of pick up here and actually fill those needs. We're going to look here. Colby Wooden is a good one. Offensive line, I don't think is as big of an issue depending on I mean, what happens here? Zach Tom's kind of slotted at right tackle according to Pro Football Focus. He can play pretty much anywhere. So we'll see. Mekhi Gardner is a pretty solid corner. Is a couple decent corners. But let's go Colby Wooden. Let's get some depth on the defensive line. Not a super huge need for this team, but I think anytime you can get some depth on the defensive line, the Packers have had their struggles defensively over the years. I think you got to take a chance there. And look at that. We already got corners who are still there, who are on the top of the board, because the Packers have some picks that are, quite frankly, pretty close together. So let's go with Mekhi Gardner. I would have liked to see more out of him over his career at college, but I think he is a pretty good player for LSU. He's a guy who stepped into the starting role this past year, and I think he can be a good player for him. And then the Packers do have a little bit of a break here, but like I said, they got a lot of picks back to back to back at the end of the draft, which I think could be really good for a couple different reasons. Maybe you want to take a quarterback, offensive line depth, whatever it is. That could be really, really good. We're going to go with Keaton Mitchell out of ECU. Yes, you don't need a running back, but this late in the game, you're trying to get depth, trying to get guys who can create an impact. Mitchell is a touchdown machine. I think there's a lot of people who think he's going to go a lot higher than this, so I think it's good value. And we'll see. Maybe he can start on special teams and then work his way into the running back rotation if A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones aren't there long term for whatever reason that might be. The next one up, let's go with Max Duggan. I'm not the biggest fan of Max Duggan as a quarterback, but he does provide some scrambling ability. He was a really tough player for TCU. They had a lot of games where, especially the Big 12 championship game, where he just kept them alive with these legs. If Aaron Rodgers walks, you want to have someone back there who can compete for a second or third quarterback spot. Yes, Jordan Love does seem like he's going to be the guy next year if Aaron Rodgers does retire, or go to a different team. But Max Duggan, it's not a bad idea to get a quarterback with one of these picks at the end of the draft. You just want to have something going on that's a little bit better than what you have on your roster right now. And maybe you get a Brock Purdy at the end of the draft here. So we'll see what happens. All right, pick 244. Let's go Isaiah Land, the linebacker out of Florida A&M. He's actually more of an edge rusher. He's going to work out for the NFL Combine. I think that's really big for him because I think he's going to test pretty well. Smaller school guy, Florida A&M didn't get all the looks that some of the other players got, but I think he can test pretty well, like I said, and be a pretty solid player. All right, so this is kind of the end of the draft here. So we got some guys that you're probably looking more for, I would say, special teams. At this point, kind of a tough one here. Let's go Moro Ojomo. I know we got defensive line already, but he's a guy I think a lot of people think can go higher as well, so that could be pretty good. And, with the Packers having all these picks, you can just go right again. You can get someone, if you didn't get someone here, you get the pick number 259. And let's go with Trey Tucker out of Cincinnati. Again, they need some wide receiver depth if they lose some of these guys in free agency. Yes, you got Parker Washington, but getting another guy you can throw in the mix can really help that depth. Overall, though, I like the draft for the Packers here because you get Brian Branch, who's one of my favorite players in this class. Really good safety instincts, athletic enough to play multiple positions in the secondary. You can move him around, which I think a lot of defensive coordinators are going to value. You get Darnell Washington, a guy who's going to block in the running game. He can be a good target. I think he's going to be a more productive player in the pros than he was at college because of who he had in front of him at Georgia and Brock Bowers. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, again, I think he's probably going to go a little bit earlier than the third round. But if you get him here, get that edge rusher, help that pass rush next year. I think that really goes a long way. Parker Washington, the wide receiver out of Penn State, seen him a lot of highlight catches. We'll see if he can maybe do better with a pro quarterback throwing to him. Colby Wooden, defensive line depth. Mekhi Gardner, corner. Keaton Mitchell's going to go much earlier. Maybe a quarterback just in case Aaron Rodgers walks, or even if he doesn't, just giving a third quarterback's never a bad idea. You just don't want to get in a situation like the 49ers this past year where they literally were down to almost no one in that playoff game and had to hand the ball off every play. Isaiah Land's a pass rusher. Moro Ojomo, fun name to say, more defensive line depth. And then Trey Tucker, a guy who at Cincinnati did not have maybe the greatest stats of all time, but at the end of the draft, maybe a guy you get to play special teams. So I really like this draft. It is my turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing more mock drafts as we get closer to the NFL draft. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.